Do you like what we do here? I would assume so if you're listening to this. We have had a good year for growth this year. We've had substantial growth on all the podcast feeds with new subscribers. We have the new YouTube channel with a bunch of new subscribers there too. But we want to carry this over into 2026 so we can continue to provide high quality entertainment, high quality news, high quality reviews, and all that kind of stuff. So what we're asking for going into next year is, if you have the ability, we're not asking for a lot, you can donate. Go to ko-fi.com/MWP News and make a donation. Everything you do goes towards making sure we can do things. That way I can take days off work to go and cover things early, or, things of that nature. Go to events and talk about them early, see advanced screenings. All that stuff goes into that budget. On top of that, if you can't afford that, and I realize right now things are tough and things are rough out there. If you can't afford that, the easiest thing you can do is subscribe and rate. No matter what you use to get this podcast, you can subscribe. Just hit the follow button, hit subscribe, whatever the button is on your thing, and then rate us. Give us 5 stars. That'll help more people find us, and the more people find us, the more we can, the more we'll be able to do, and we'll be able to get more happening. You can also go to mwpnews.com and sign up for our newsletter. There we will have articles and stuff like that about what we cover on this show. And we will also be doing more gaming content on the YouTube channel. If we can get, with more subscribers on there, we can do more. And that's youtube.com/@MWPnews. And again, thank you for a great year for us. Next year will be better. One of the big issues that I had this year that preempted me from doing a lot of what I wanted to has been resolved with the issue with my car, and that issue has been resolved. So going into this next year, we should be a lot more smooth sailing, but we do need your help to get more people listening and get what we're doing here out there. So just subscribe, tell your friends, and if you have the ability to, and you have the money, and you want to, and you think we're doing a good job, and we've earned that, go to ko-fi.com/MWP News and throw us whatever you think we deserve. And thank you, and enjoy this episode. Good evening, and welcome to the Backlog Files. That's the name of this show. I am Adam. So, it is February 27th, 2026. And I think there's something that we really got to address this first. It's Pokemon Day. We get our announcements of what's coming soon to Pokemon. There are a few oddities here and there. Today is the day that Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green will be available on, will be available to play on your Switch and Switch 2 consoles. I already have my copy of Fire Red pre-ordered, and I will be playing that later today. And the thing that, is kind of weird about this, I think that what we're looking at here is it's an oddity that was kind of unearthed in this. The Pokemon Company's always kind of done weird things, like historically through their time as a company. And I think that what we have right now is another one of them. And I wonder if GTA is kind of the thing here. And what I'm talking about is the fact that all the leaks kind of indicated, like, we knew Wind and Waves was being announced, we knew, all this stuff was coming, and I think that there was an indication that, like, they would want to have the 10th generation of Pokemon lined up with the release of, in the 30th anniversary year. I think that was kind of something that people were anticipating. And like, look, they were taking time off, between Scarlet and Violet to do, Legends. There was 2 years in between there, and then Legends very quickly had their DLC. And the leaks kind of said, hey, 2026 we're going to get this, and then we're going to go down the line from there with new generations, new regions, new Legends games, and all of that. And it seems, and now we know that from these internal documents, which may have been out of date at the time of publication, from whenever that leak happened, it seems that it has been pushed back to 2027 now. That has been formally announced. 2027 is when we're going to get Wind and Waves. That was arguably the biggest announcement. We have new shit happening in the mobile games. There's that new music thing that you can buy to listen to the chiptone music from Red and Blue. There's, Champions is coming out in April. XD is coming to Switch Online next month. But here's the thing, that there's and Pokopia obviously next week. So let's talk about what's weird about this. They very quickly moved through Legends ZA. They were very quick about that. They went immediately from Legends ZA to the DLC. It was like under 2 months between the release and the DLC's release, which was kind of strange. But like at the time I chalked it up. If you listen back to the episode, I'm like, well, they probably did that because my assumption is they don't know which battle formula they want to use. Do they want to transition to the active action version, or they want to keep it turn-based? And it's like, let's see what happens here with how this works. And it's just one of those things that I'm like, what is the game plan here? Where it's like, why are we, like, I feel like the decision to delay it is that they don't want to get caught up in the GTA of it all. Like that, because that's the big thing at the end of this year, is that GTA is coming out in November. If Pokemon releases a game in October or November, it will be obscured by that. They don't want to do that. Arguably releasing it before that would have been okay, but if it's not ready for that, they'd rather delay it out and have it come separate. That way they can avoid that kind of tidal wave and just kind of move on from there. I can buy that logic, and that might be why they moved to 2027. But if that's the case, why wouldn't you have moved the Mega Dimension to like now? So that way people have more time to do that, and it's going to stay in people's consciousness. And the other thing is, Pokopia is coming out next week. Champions is coming out in April. XD is coming out next month in March at some point. We don't know specifically when yet. And presumably we'll also have Coliseum at some point this year, because Coliseum was in the initial announcement from the Switch 2 Direct, where they were like, hey, we're going to have GameCube, Nintendo Classic games on there. We're going to have this on, we're going to have this on all of that. And I'm like, all right, cool. I think this is all not the worst idea, on the planet. But if we're going to be going between major home console releases that long for a franchise like this, why are we not doing something like a remaster, like a DX of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of the Sky? Or like, we're going to put money into a Switch 2 edition of Snap, or of not Snap, new Pokemon Snap, or something else on the Switch 2 to be like, hey, we got to do that. Because here's the other issue, and I think that this is not specifically a Pokemon problem. I think this is a Nintendo problem. What's Nintendo's big release this year in November that they're going to be able to release and get hyped for? Because keeping in mind, we haven't had the Nintendo Direct yet. That's going to show off what's coming down the line. We haven't had the big, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like the big, what's the word I'm looking for here? The Nintendo,
roadmap for 2026. We know that like they have Tamagotchi Life, but we don't know what's coming in the back half of the year. We know that Wolverine's coming from Sony. We know that that GTA is coming from Rockstar on multi-platform. But what are we getting from Nintendo in their first-party titles? And there is that Yoshi game, which maybe that's the thing that's going to be it. But is that their big thing at the end of the year? Or is that just like a midsummer release or early fall release? And I wonder if like Pokemon was meant to be that this year and it's just not now. And that's kind of the oddity here. What's the thing that's going to get people in? And it's like, are we going to get a new Mario Party? Are we going to get, like, there are a lot of questions on the table here that this Direct kind of open up. Because, like, if it was like, hey, we're releasing this, you know, what's Nintendo going to release around this time? At this point, the Switch 2 is kind of barren on games. I mean, they have Bonanza, which I haven't played yet. They have Mario Kart World, which for me is, you know, I don't want to say entirely run its course, but it's something I'll pop into every once in a while. They have Kirby Air Riders. They have Hyrule Warriors, which, I mean, if you're me, that's not something you're particularly interested in. But, like, are we going to get another Legend of Zelda? Some kind of, like, HD port or something like that. Like Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons in the style of the Link's Awakening remake. Is that something that's on the table? You know, there's a lot of questions here now that, like, okay, well, they got to have something coming at the end of this year to fill the gap that would have been the presumed November release of Pokemon Wind and Waves. And I know it's not gameplay footage. I think I saw that it was in-engine, and maybe that's what this is. But, like, look, if you're not going to release a title this year, if you're not going to release, you know, a mainline title, I don't think Fire Red and Leaf Green are enough to tide people over. And then the oddity, too, about this is that we know that Fire Red and Leaf Green will be home compatible. They confirmed that today. Fire Red and Leaf Green have substantial amounts of story time devoted to a side quest entirely designed to unlock trading with Ruby and Sapphire and Emerald. Are those also going to be ported? And then the question is, like, will my copy of Fire Red and Leaf Green that I buy through Switch Online, will that be able to communicate with XD and Coliseum in Switch Online? I would assume not, but that was a feature in the original games, is that you could connect it with your Game Boy and you could use your parties from those games in that. I think the better move here for them, for this year, if you were going to do that, is that it's like, I feel like if you had released incrementally throughout the year and started today with Red, Blue, Yellow, and it's like, okay, the Red, Blue, and Yellow came out on Pokemon Day, and you can buy those on Switch on the eShop, and then we go to, you know, maybe a month or two from now, Gold, Silver, Crystal, a month or two from now, we get, you know, and just go through that. Maybe that was the move. Maybe the move was to use and I know people hate Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. I'm not one of those people, but I get that people hate Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Maybe that studio should have done Black and White too, or Black and White and then Black 2 White 2. Maybe they should have done that. You know, maybe that was the move that they should have done. Something this year. Because the weird thing is, this is a big anniversary, to the point that Nintendo went out, or Pokemon went out, and bought ad space during the Super Bowl. They paid $20 million, plus however much it cost for Trevor Noah and Lady Gaga and all the other stars who showed up for this commercial. They paid all of that money for this. And then they didn't have anything big coming out this year. I don't think Pokopia is necessarily the thing that you waste that money on. I don't think a $20 million Super Bowl spot, or like, oh, and by the way, we have a Pokemon Minecraft game coming out later this year, or in a few weeks. Because if that's what you're going to spend this ad time on, you're going to plug that. It's just weird to me that you did this, and it's like, why is it in the 30th anniversary year, most of the year has nothing? You're front-loaded because you're going to have XD, you're going to have Champions, you're going to have new stuff in Unite, new stuff in Go, new stuff in Cafe Remix, new stuff in Sleep. You're going to have all of that. But it feels like you're missing the 30th anniversary gravitas. You're missing the chance to be like, hey, so we're setting up, what this could be. Like, it's a very weird thing that, like, kind of is the same as, I would say, what Lucasfilm is, actively not doing with, is actively not doing with, with X-Wing, which X-Wing also came out 30 years ago this year, where it's like, oh, we're not going to acknowledge Rogue Squadron or anything like that for the 30th anniversary. But where we are with this is, it's just kind of a really weird place that they've left this year off to. I think that this presentation does not exactly make me feel like you are, taking this, what is the most profitable video game franchise in the history of video games, and one of the most well-known brands and IP in the world, and you're not doing a full year celebration of it, feels weird. And the idea that and maybe it is like, hey, if we move Wind and Waves to next year, it doesn't have the burden of being the 30th anniversary game. And I feel like that will heighten people's expectations to begin with. Maybe that's the thought process here. Maybe that's the idea that, like, they have to, what's it called? They have to, deal with. But I don't know. I feel like that there were poor decisions that went into this. I feel like even a small thing like being like, hey, so we're going to incrementally release the old games this year. And it's like, look, we're not going to do direct ports of the game of the DS games. Even if you did do that, I mean, that would be, I'm sure that's possible to an extent, to do like straight ports of, like, Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, and Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and being like, hey, so we just won't use the bottom screen, or it's like, it's one of the things that, like, it won't need the bottom screen if you play it in docked mode. If you play it, no, you couldn't do that. No, you would have been able to on the Wii U, but on the Switch you can't, because if it's docked, you can't have the screen. But either way, it's like the Pokemon games historically have never really used the bottom screen well. I would say the only one that did do it well was, what's it called? Was I forgot what it was called. Heart Gold Soul Silver was the only one that did it well. But like, if you went in and you did baseline, I feel like that was something that they kind of could have done better. That would have been something that would have been a very easy win, that would have done it, would have been handled better. But I digress. I liked the footage that they showed from the new games. I really liked, like, I know it's in engine, it's not that, but if that's how the games are going to, if this is the quality of visuals that we're going to get from this engine, I'm very interested to see how this game looks when it does finally come out. I've been playing the Switch 2 edition of Scarlet, and that game looks so much better. Yeah, there's still some jank, yeah, there's still some weird camera things, there's still some weird texture things, but the game runs so much smoother and it looks so much cleaner. It's just one of those things where it's like, I don't understand why, if this is what it's going to look like, then let's see how this comes out. But in this form, there's really nothing we can really, do. But that's kind of where I am on this. I feel like, maybe they should have announced something to, like, really honor this, and in a way that, like, it doesn't feel like you're paying for something. Like, merch drops feel more like paying for something. And I feel like, too, it's like Pokopia could be the 30th anniversary game. It could be that, and it could be that it's coming out next week because they wanted to, have the presents presentation to kind of show off what it's doing. Maybe it is that game. Maybe this is the homage to the last 30 years of Pokemon in a way that feels organic and nice and kind of fun. We'll see next week when we play it. But if that's the case, then I still feel like something is off. I still feel like something is just a little bit off, and something is just a little bit not quite what it should be for what this is. And I feel like the easiest win would have been, hey, let's just port these games. And I'm sure there was a way to port like Black and White and and X and Y and all of these. And I get that they do minimal effort when they come to these ports, because when you go on the eShop to buy Fire Red and Leaf Green, you have to make sure you buy the right language, because instead of buying it and then when it starts out pick the language you want to use, you got to buy the right one. There's 3 separate listings on the eShop for Fire Red and Leaf Green. And it's I get that these are minimum effort, but if that's the case, then just space out Gens 1, 2, and 3 where you can do it that way. That's also an option. And again, the motion controls were not... the touchscreen, really the only game that I think that you would miss the touchscreen on is really it's just the Gen 4 games, where it's the Poketch uses the touchscreen a lot, and then you're turning, sure, and then the Pokeathlon and the other one in what's it called, the Pokeathlon and the way the touchscreen works in Heart Gold Soul Silver are really the only ones, because the C gear you can kind of use entirely without, and that's the entire bottom screen for all of Gen 5. What was Gen 6's use of the bottom? I don't remember Gen 6 or Gen 7's use of the bottom screen. So it's just one of those things where it's whatever. But yeah, I'm sure there was a way to do that. I'm sure they could have put in minimal effort and gotten that out and working. And that would have been a really cool thing for the 30th anniversary. And even if it was just, hey, we're putting out Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, Silver, Crystal, Fire Red, Leaf Green, Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. And then or if it was this is the thing that I'm confused about today, is that it's I left this presentation and I was this is a very simple game that they could have put on one of these to stealth drop. Why did you not stealth? I get why, because you didn't want to compete with yourself where you were already putting that out and then the week after, but why is there not just a steady drip of things that are coming? Because you could have put Pokemon Pinball out, Pokemon Channel, there's enough content between that hasn't been released yet on the Game Boy Advance and the GameCube that you could have had a reasonably steady drip throughout the year of just here's the old shit, and then just lead into hey, early next year at Wind and Waves. And I think that's kind of going to be the big thing, is that Wind and Waves is not going to come out in November of 27, it's going to come out early 27. But again, I digress. We'll wrap up there for today. And until our next episode, which will be next week when we talk about, I don't know yet what yet, but we'll talk about something next week. Have a great rest of your week.